Back again. I was back. Pull up then. You see them? Just had another video for y'all. Doing it big this month. Shouts out to my 2 p.m. video schedule coming up. I'm gonna see how many of them I do. I don't know. No promises. If I don't make it, I don't make it. Got a good one though. Let's talk about some bleach.
So, just the other day I was taking a look at my list of the 10 strongest Bankai in Bleach from over a year ago, thinking about potentially revisiting and re-evaluating it in the near future, when it occurred to me that I've never done a video looking at the opposite end of the spectrum, looking at the Bankai often considered the weakest or worst in the series. Probably a contentious topic to be sure, but also a fun one to try and tackle. Now, the biggest issue with a list like this, in my opinion, is that there are no truly weak Bankai. As far as I'm concerned, it wouldn't make sense if there were. After all, a Bankai is supposed to be a Shinigami's ultimate trump card, their most powerful ability only to be used in the most dire of circumstances. So while I don't think there's too much merit in looking at them simply as the weakest, it's also true that not all Bankai are created equal. There are some Bankai that are simply less versatile, less effective, and have bigger and more numerous drawbacks and disadvantages than those that you might find on the strongest Bankai list. So that's how we're going to try and approach this video. But as always, a list like this is just my subjective opinion, so please let me know your lists in the comments. I always find it enlightening to see how off base I am, or if our thoughts might actually align. Before we get started on the video, guys, if you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure to do that now for more Bleach content like this every single week. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up as well to help support me and the channel. And if you want to take that support from me another step further, I do also have a Patreon as well. And as always, I want to say a massive shout out and a huge thank you to each and every one of you supporting me over there on Patreon. I really do appreciate it. And as always, there will be spoilers for the entirety of the 1000-Year Blood War arc in this video, as well as some of the light novel Can't Fear Your Own World. Now, I've got 9 Bankai to go through here on this list, but before we get to any of those, first, I've got an honourable mention. Now, this Bankai is on here as an honourable mention because I couldn't work out whether it might go on the best or strongest Bankai list, or the worst one, thanks to the crippling disadvantaged state it leaves its wielder in. And that Bankai is Shuhei Hisagi's Fushi no Kojo, as revealed in Can't Fear Your Own World. Now, I really like the overall look and feel of this Bankai. The sinister, ominous energy and the captive imagery of the chains really works for Hisagi as a character. Basically, Fushi no Kojo links both fighters by chains wrapped around their necks to a massive orb suspended above them. This lingering black mass acts as a reservoir of their combined Reiatsu. As long as the Bankai is active, neither fighter can be killed, and their Reiatsu is constantly being drained to heal their wounds, even those that should be fatal. And that's why I feel like this Bankai could be considered one of the best. It allows Hisagi to fight on even ground with an opponent that might have considerably more Reiatsu than him, because their respective Reiatsu is distributed evenly amongst them during battle. But on the flip side, Hisagi can never win a fight with his Bankai alone. He must deactivate it before it completely drains the Reiatsu of both fighters, or else he, along with his opponent, will be killed. Not only that, but Hisagi's Bankai only puts him on an even playing field in terms of Reiatsu. If his opponent is simply more powerful or a more adept fighter, they'll still be doing more damage overall. When it comes down to that final moment, once the Bankai's effects are lifted, Hisagi absolutely needs someone else around to step in and administer the final blow. So this is a tough one for me. It's a cool Bankai, but it can only go so far, and I feel like that hampers its usefulness in a big way. Not enough that it actually gets a spot on this list, but I felt I should mention it anyway. Now then, kicking off the actual list itself with number 9, we have a pretty cool Bankai for a pretty cool character, and that's Rose's Kinshara Butodan, a favourite of mine, and someone whose Bankai I was pleasantly surprised to see in the 1000-Year Blood War arc. Using the power of sound and music, Rose can trick his opponents into imagining they're being injured, and then for that imagined injury to become reality. For example, Rose's dance troupe ignite Mask Demasculine with a powerful flame, except they're not actually doing that. But because the melody being played makes Mask believe it's happening, he actually gets burned. It's the same as when he's crushed violently by a torrent of water, just one of what seems to be many different dances at Rose's disposal. Kinshara Butodan's dance troupe of death is an incredibly stylish and unique Bankai, perfect for the character, but it comes with a massive fatal flaw. If the enemy can't hear the music for whatever reason, its powers become totally useless. It's not so much a weakness as it is a literal kill switch that renders the Bankai completely ineffective. We see Mask Demasculine destroy his own eardrums, removing all of the Bankai's power, and in a universe like Bleach where limbs and body parts can be restored and healed with ease, that doesn't feel like a pretty big sacrifice. In fact, Mask's own eardrums are returned to him in the very next chapter. There's also the slight issue that Rose's Bankai removes his weapon entirely, unfurling his whip in order to create the dancers. Maybe I'm being a little harsh on Rose. It really is a clever, creative, and pretty strong Bankai, and perhaps if he'd shut his mouth about its abilities, Mask wouldn't have figured out what was going on. But the fact that that option is there to totally and utterly render the Bankai null and void, I feel it's worth a place on this list. Now, this next Bankai is not one I would expect to see on here in the future, once the Shinigami in question has had a bit of time to get to know it better, to grow it and mature it, and overall make it more stable, less unwieldy, and crucially, less dangerous. But that Bankai is Rukia Kuchiki's Haka no Togame. Haka no Togame is a beautiful spectacle befitting of Rukia and Sode no Shirayuki's grace. It's also incredibly risky to use. Yes, Rukia was able to kill As not in a single stroke of her translucent icy blade. But what if she comes up against anyone stronger than him, more durable than him? If Rukia's enemy survives her Bankai in its current state that we've seen in the canon story itself, then they're faced with a Rukia who is completely and utterly helpless. The one time we saw Rukia use her Bankai in the source material, she almost shattered her own body by attempting to move and release it too fast. As Byakuya himself says, this is a dangerous Bankai to wield. It seems to be, from the very small snippet we got, a powerful one. But right now, Rukia is just too inexperienced with it, or at least she was before that final time skip. It leaves her too vulnerable and too exposed, seemingly rooted to the ground as she attempts to thaw herself out slowly, lest she kill herself on the spot. The mobile game Bleach Brave Souls gave us a tantalizing look at a Rukia who has had more time to evolve her powers, and Haka no Togame really comes into its own there as she skates around effortlessly. But for now, in terms of what we've seen in the pages of Bleach itself, I'm happy having it on the list. Mayuri Kurotsuchi is always such a tricky character to rank, no matter the subject or criteria. When it comes to his Bankai Konjiki Ashisogi Jizo, he's able to modify it, reform it, smash it and break it, and do just about anything he likes to it. But in terms of the Bankai we see in the story before the 1000-Year Blood War arc, I think it deserves a spot on the list. Perhaps the most glaring issue with this Bankai is the fact it's a gigantic, organic target. Mayuri's Bankai summons an abomination behind him, and in nearly every fight we see it in, it's either destroyed or controlled in some way. Interestingly, Mayuri activating his Bankai is never what actually wins him a fight. The Bankai just seemingly creates a nice spectacle, but is generally defeated in some way. It's Mayuri's own tricks that end up winning the day, which I think is fitting. The Bankai is also surprisingly limited in its versatility. It sprouts a bouquet of blades from its chest, making it appear to be mostly melee-focused in combat. Its most potent ability is the noxious gas cloud it spreads from its mouth, but aside from that, Konjiki Ashisogi Jizo doesn't really have much going for it. Now, the modified version we get in the 1000-Year Blood War is a totally different story, and would probably find its way onto the strongest Bankai list instead, so at least Mayuri was able to upgrade. As the Bankai of our main character, it's only natural that Tensa Zangetsu would grow and improve over the course of the story. Therefore, the original version of Tensa is the only one that's making it onto this list. As far as I'm concerned, once Ichigo gets his powers back in the Lost Agent arc, that's a whole different ballgame. This version of Ichigo's Bankai has always felt a bit muted to me, which I think makes sense considering how little of his own true power he's actually using. But he's unable to defeat Byakuya with it alone without Zangetsu interfering, and after that he remains in Bankai for such an unusually long time that it really loses all impact. Once we get to the Urankar arc and the emphasis is instead placed on his hollow mask, his Bankai well and truly takes a back seat. The impressive speed boost he gets is nice, specifically earlier on, but even that begins to slowly fade into the background over time. And of course, once Ichigo gets the hang of using the Black Getsuga, the Bankai's overall strength increases with it. And really that's the key with Ichigo. He's all about growth, and we get to see his Bankai grow alongside him. So while the first version of Tensa Zangetsu is absolutely iconic, I think it deserves its spot. Soifon's Bankai Jakuho Raikoben has been roundly criticised a lot in the past within the Bleach community, and mostly fairly too, I would say. Again, this is a really cool and unique Bankai, but it comes with an awful lot of drawbacks and is honestly pretty worthless in most circumstances, adding very little value to Soifon's already impressive skill set. Even when she manages to pull the Bankai off, we've yet to see it be used truly successfully. Equipping Soifon with a massive missile launcher, Jakuho Raikoben is cumbersome, slow, and extremely draining to use. Jakuho Raikoben uses so much Reiatsu that Soifon herself claimed she could only fire it once every 3 days, and was visibly exhausted after being forced to use it twice in quick succession. While Soifon herself chastises her Bankai as being ill-suited for an assassin due to being overly flashy, this is only one of a few issues that it has. That being said, I do think it fits her overall. It represents the more volatile, explosive side of her personality that she doesn't like. But the Bankai just seems to be fatally poorly designed for combat in general. In one instance of her using it, we see Soifon needs to prepare in order to do so, requiring her to find the time and space necessary to set up her steel sash first. And while the theme of her Bankai is clear, where her Shikai requires 2 steps to kill, the Bankai should theoretically only need 1. Both times she's landed a successful hit, her enemies have survived. Jakuho Raikoben seems to be pretty good at blowing off faces, but not actually finishing anyone off, although I do wonder what Baragon would have actually looked like had he returned to his base form after losing half of his skull, were that even possible at that point. Here we have another unfortunate Bankai for a character I'm a big fan of. When you're talking about the overall weakest or worst Bankai in Bleach, Seijin Komomura's Kokujo Tengen Myo is always going to make an appearance, but as with some of his contemporaries before him, we'll only be taking into consideration Kokujo Tengen Myo as it appears before the 1000-Year Blood War, where it undergoes a rather interesting change that, in my opinion, would see it lifted out of this list. Don't get me wrong, Komomura's Bankai is an amazing sight to behold, and the giant warrior wields near unparalleled physical strength, able to kill an equally colossal Urankar in a single sword strike, and rupture and mangle Tozen's arm with ease after they clash. Kokujo Tengen Myo was also indirectly improved with the revelation that broken Bankai can never be fixed. Komamura's close bond with his Bankai makes his the sole exception, meaning that when it takes a hit, it will at least recover, given enough time. And it better be prepared to take a hit, because Komamura's Bankai simply creates one enormous target with a pretty big sword, and that's about it. Komamura himself is more of a brawler-style character, so it makes sense. But the Bankai's biggest drawback is just that. It can't really do anything outside of copy Komamura's own movements. To make matters even worse, any damage dealt to the giant is also reflected upon Komamura himself, meaning that not only do you now have a huge target, but also a more fragile and riskier one than you might have originally anticipated. Kensei's Bankai Tekken Tachikaze just feels unimpressive to me. There's not even really that much to say about it. Taking Tachikaze's core ability, the power to detonate explosive bursts along the knife's slashes, and instead apply it to Kensei's fists sounds pretty cool on paper, and Kensei is well known for his proficiency in hand-to-hand combat, making this Bankai perfectly suited. But it seems to be really limited in both scope and versatility. Not only does his Bankai completely negate his range, reducing the overall effectiveness of his original core ability, but we see his Bankai in action against Masked Masculine, and it has little to no effect at all, even when seemingly being used at full throttle. Kensei slams his fist into Mask's gut, and we see the full force of his explosive punches being rammed into the Sternritter one after the other, while the idea of it endlessly punching is pretty cool and might be more effective perhaps on a less durable opponent. Mask returns almost completely unharmed, and all Kensei's Bankai can seemingly do in response is change the protrusions on his hand, which, and I'm only really speculating here, maybe just increases the concentration of his punches even further. All in all, it's just a bit of a disappointing Bankai in general. There's very little spectacle, there's not much going on visually of interest, and it just seems to be pretty weak and even somewhat stunted. Coming in at number 2, Renji's initial Bankai, Hihio Zabimaru, is enormous, imposing, ferocious, and severely lacking in many ways. This feels like a similar situation to Ichigo's Tensa Zangetsu and to a lesser extent Rukia's Haka no Togame. These are all Bankai that have really only just been learned, and therefore it's expected that they'll come with drawbacks. To compound that even further, Hihio Zabimaru turns out to not even be the true name of Renji's Bankai at all. What this leaves him with, for the majority of the story, is a Bankai that looks amazing but offers very little. The enormous size of the skeletal snake makes controlling it elegantly difficult, and while elegance might not be Renji's thing, the duel against Byakuya exposes how the messiness of this weapon's design can easily be used against it. Then there's its fragility. This is another Bankai that makes for a very big target, and while it can be used both offensively and defensively, using the individual segments to both block attacks and withstand damage risks them being forever broken. There is versatility here. Hikot's Taiho gives the Bankai additional range, and Renji can freely control the individual segments using his Reiatsu. But at the end of the day, this is another massive, fragile, and slow Bankai that's both difficult to wield effectively and doesn't pack enough killing power to be truly useful in the heat of battle. The true version of his Bankai, Soho Zabimaru, seems to be vastly superior in almost every way, except perhaps visual design. But taking the dubious honour of the top spot on my list of the quote-unquote worst Bankai in Bleach, well, Ikkaku might have the single most badass Bankai call-out in the history of the series, but unfortunately that doesn't make up for everything Ryumon Hozakimaru lacks. Admittedly, we only get a fleeting glimpse of this Bankai in the series, so it's possible we're missing key elements. Maybe Ikkaku was still in the process of mastering and completing his Bankai. Unlike others on this list, however, not only is that not confirmed, but nothing comes of it either. Instead, Ikkaku wields a clumsy, brute force Bankai that is smashed to pieces in its first on-screen battle. Ryumon Hozukimaru has very little going for it outside of a sleek and menacing visual design. In the state we saw it in, the Bankai is certainly capable of outputting some damage, but it feels like a glass cannon, and the cannonball it packs isn't even particularly dangerous. One hit from the Fraction Edrad is enough to crack one of the Bankai's brittle blades, and by the end of the fight, there's nothing left to salvage. In order to defeat this opponent, Ikkaku is forced to give it his all, and even potentially renders his Bankai unusable in the future as a result. Then there's the Bankai's own nature to contend with as well. As his Zanpakuto is lazy and often slumbering when a fight begins, Ikkaku needs to put in the work himself before his Bankai even reaches its true potential. The gimmick of being able to power up his Bankai as a fight goes on is interesting, but again, risky. The only reason Ikkaku gets away with spinning his Bankai to speed up that process is because Edrad sits back and lets him do it, and even at its most powerful state, it's still reduced to a smoking stick in the end. Maybe there is still some place Ikkaku can take his Bankai, we don't know. But with limited range and a fighting style that favours getting up close and personal with your opponent, Ryumon Hozukimaru is too delicate, too sluggish, and generally too weak for the job it needs to do. And that's it for my video on what I believe to be the worst or weakest Bankai in Bleach. Again, it's a very difficult video to make, because like I said at the start, I don't feel there are any truly weak Bankai, but not all Bankai are created equal, and there are certainly those with more drawbacks, more disadvantages, and just in general more failings than those you might find on the strongest Bankai list. But I'd love to hear your lists in the comments below. Please do let me know. Let me know if you agree with any of my rankings, my candidates whatsoever. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Make sure to hit subscribe if you haven't done already. And until next time, guys, I'll catch you later. I'll see you then.
You know, one of the biggest reasons I love Kuro so much is that no matter how much I think I know about the content, he still manages to blow my mind with new, interesting details. The latest of these mind-blowing revelations is White Ichigo, or White for short. The character archetype of White has become somewhat of a staple in anime and manga. People see White and think, oh, it's the cliché dark side of the main character archetype. Think Naruto and Kurama, Asta and Leeb, and Itadori and Sukuna. But even though Ichigo and White, along with Naruto, are the characters who popularized this archetype, I came to find that I did not understand White as deeply as I thought I did. I believed White to be the hollow embodiment of Ichigo's raw instinctual battle instincts. Even though we later learned that he is the embodiment of Ichigo's hollow and Shinigami powers, I internalized that demonic image I had built into my mind. He was a monster, craving power and control over Ichigo's mind and body. He was a threat to the world and a pariah meant to be fought back and subdued. And I know that there are tons of videos online that give their own unique perspective on why this is true, but I implore you to hear me out. I will not claim my opinion to be the one true interpretation of White's character, but at the very least, I can offer you a different perspective. To understand where I'm coming from, we have to go to the very beginning. Not chapter 1 of Bleach, but rather the chronological beginning, the Everything But the Rain arc, where it all began. The prelude to this flashback arc is quite simply, Ichigo has been thrown out of the royal palace by Nimaya Uetsu because he failed to subdue the Asauchi. Nimaya tells Renji after kicking Ichigo out that Ichigo needs to find where his soul truly lies. Upon returning home, his father seeks him out with the intent to tell Ichigo the truth about the nature of his mother's death. As the story goes, Isshin heads to the world of the living on a mission and encounters a hollow. This particular hollow was clad in black armor with white hair and a white mask. This hollow, as we later find out, is called White. He looked like a hollow, but his hollow hole was blocked. and as Ishin fights it, he notes that it has the appearance of a hollow but fights like a Shinigami. The battle raged on and White ends up firing a Sero. At that juncture, Ishin upgrades his theory that this is not just a hollow but a Menos. Now, fast forward a little bit and Ishin enters his Shikai state and gets cut by Aizen, who is cleverly hidden using Kisuke's camouflage cloak. As Aizen prepares to leave, Kaname and Aizen have an exchange that is extremely important. 1. He asks Aizen to call the hollow by its name, White. 2. He notes that White is on a completely different level from the other hollows they created because he is the first hollow they created using the soul of a Shinigami. And 3. Aizen explains that the reason he is called White is because despite the jet black armor that covers him, what lies within can only be described as white. Now, I have a few things to say about these 3 facts. Firstly, in my personal opinion, I believe that white, within a literary context, alludes to purity in its uncontaminated form. It is neither good nor evil, not necessarily. The point is that it's pure, and that is what white is. Secondly, Aizen calls White a prototype. He's not the final product. In fact, if he is indeed the first hollow formed using the soul of a Shinigami, he is most definitely unperfected. In other words, the White we see now is a failure. He wasn't good enough to meet Aizen's expectations. Keep these ideas in mind as we progress. The next scene of importance is Masaki's intrusion. Masaki tries to save Ishin and gets bitten by White. After being bitten, she calmly blows its head off. In the coming chapters, Masaki succumbs to the hollow hole being formed on her. Ryukin and Ishin are then approached by Kisuke, who has a plan to save her life. Now, on the first page of chapter 535, and what might be the most important part of this video, Masaki is falling down a deep, dark abyss and she's thinking to herself, I'm falling down a peaceful hole, quiet, dark, and lonely, but strangely, I'm not scared. I know somebody down there needs me. Who? She opens her eyes and gazes upon the shape of a hollow mask, but this time, White is not covered in black. No, he's in his purest white form. The white soul trapped in black armor is no longer bound. What is the significance of this scene? We may not know everything, but we do know a few things that are factual. Masaki's soul is now in the same location as White. In other words, when Masaki claims that she's in a deep, dark abyss that is lonely, we can assume that White, who shares this location, feels this emotion as well. Beyond that, when she claims that she's not scared, that someone down there needs her, who else but White could be the one who needs her? And if White truly was this evil demonic monster fueled by instinct and lust for power, would Masaki conclude that he needed her? Now, before we go on, there's something that we have to understand. Between Kaname and Aizen's description of White along with the timeline of White's creation, which is not very long ago, you could very easily think of White as a baby, a blank slate only acting on survival instinct. So between the attacking of Ishin, the Soul Reapers, and Masaki, he's operating on the only logic available to him, instinct. So right before Ishin comes to save Masaki, just like a baby who cannot comprehend his own thoughts and desires, he reacts on instinct and seemingly tries to swallow her whole. Before anything happens, Ishin arrives and slashes him with a Getsuga Tensho, saving Masaki. Now, there is an important detail to understand about Masaki and White's relationship. As explained by Kisuke Urahara, her soul and the hollow inside must be tied together with an incredibly strong reishi that ties the soul. In other words, Masaki and White will be bound. Now, this might be a little bit of headcanon, but I'll let you decide if this holds any weight. I believe that based on Urahara's explanation of the bond that will form between Masaki and White, this reishi tie is very similar to the bond between Shinigami and Zanpakuto. The Zanpakuto is born from the Soul Reaper and the two are one. So while this isn't one soul breaking into A and B, it's soul A being bound to another soul B. So the origin is reversed, but the end result could be the same. If that's the case, that means that the rules that apply between Soul Reaper and Zanpakuto would apply here as well. In other words, when Old Man Zangetsu describes that he's able to share in Ichiko's emotions and feel the effects of Ichiko's despair, which is the rain falling and the skyscrapers crumbling, it's very possible that White in this newfound relationship with Masaki can share in her emotions as well. If White can indeed do this, that would mean that the subsequent life Masaki lived, filled with love, warmth, light, and joy, was shared with White. I'm not saying that White will automatically feel the same thing Masaki feels, but now he knows. Now, the naive baby can learn. He can experience. He he can decide for himself what he wants and desires. So what does White desire? How does he interact with Ichigo? If we move forward chronologically, Ichigo charges into Soul Society and battles Renji. After defeating Renji, Hanataro finds that a hollow mask shielded Ichigo from the fatal blow. Now, I ask that you do not assume anything yet. First, let's lay out the events as they transpire. After that, you can decide for yourself. So Ichigo moves on to battle Zaraki, and after snapping Zangetsu in two and stabbing Ichigo through the chest, Old Man Zangetsu arrives and takes Ichigo into his inner world. This is the first time we see White Ichigo. Now, there are some very important things to consider here. First, what does White call Ichigo? Partner. He doesn't call him by a condescending name, he calls him partner. What does he do as they battle? He starts instructing Ichigo. He starts teaching Ichigo about the folly of his notion and perspectives. Here's a hollow we think to be motivated by his desire to take over Ichigo's body and soul. If he truly wanted to, why bother teaching Ichigo at all? I'll let you answer that after considering all the details. Their battle rages on and Ichigo has a resolution, earning back Zangetsu's blade. After he leaves, White and Old Man Zangetsu have a small conversation. Zangetsu apologizes to White and White responds by saying that Ichigo is the king of this world. I'll help out any way that I can. Again, this is the White who supposedly wants to take over Ichigo's body and mind, but here comes a line spoken by White that really threw me for a loop. He tells Zangetsu as he's fading away and he says, "Praise him well, because his power will eventually be mine." Many people see this line and just like myself, assume that White is talking about taking over Ichigo's mind and so on and so forth. But consider this. In chapter 541 entitled The Blade in Me 2, Old Man Zangetsu reveals his true intentions. He tells Ichigo that he is the source of the Quincy power inside him. He is Yuha, but he's also not Yuha. He reminds Ichigo that the one who came to his aid whenever his life was in danger was never him, but his hollow. He goes on to say that he did not want Ichigo to become a Soul Reaper, and for that reason, suppressed his power that was not yet mature so he could personally become the center of Ichigo's power. Why did he do this? Because if Ichigo continued to walk the path of the Shinigami, he would head into conflict and have to eventually be killed by himself. If you want to know who he means by himself, he's referring to Yuha Bach, but I'll make a separate video breaking that down, so don't worry. But moving on. We know that Old Man Zangetsu has a change of heart, and that's all good, but the point is, White knew that Old Man Zangetsu was the center of Ichigo's power because he was suppressing him, and for that reason, when he says that the power will be mine, he's not talking about Ichigo's mind, but rather, he's talking about becoming the center of Ichigo's spirit energy. And why does White want to make sure he's the center of Ichigo's power? Why? Because Old Man Zangetsu, before having a change of heart, would have inevitably led Ichigo to his death. Again, I won't force my belief on you, but hopefully you are beginning to see the trend. We fast forward to Ichigo's battle with Byakuya, and there are more fascinating details to go over here. In one of the most iconic moments in Bleach, as Byakuya strikes his blade down at Ichigo, White catches it and says a few words to Ichigo. He says, "Fool, I told you, I can't allow you to die." Yet again, there are two ways to interpret this. This is either White looking out for his own personal preservation, or he actually means it when he says, "I cannot allow Ichigo to die." There's an extremely important detail hidden here that we will come back to. We head into the Arankuro arc, and with the arrival of Yami Yargo and Ulquiorra Schiffer, Ichigo heads into battle. He makes quick work of Yami, but feels his hollow start to take over, and Ulquiorra then makes the comment that Ichigo's Ryotsu is fluctuating. When it's low, it's garbage, but when it's high, it's stronger than mine. Luckily for Ichigo, Urahara comes in for the save. White's next manifestation is when Ichigo fights against Hiyori in the Visored hideout. Hiyori fights with the intention of drawing out Ichigo's hollow, and Ichigo is hell-bent on preventing himself from hollowifying. White does manage to take over Ichigo's body once he blacks out, but he doesn't just black out. In the manga, she actually slashes Ichigo right across the chest, and Ichigo is profusely bleeding. Hiyori put his mortal life in danger, and that's what draws White out once Ichigo blacks out, who then chokes Hiyori until she's saved by the others. So we move forward, and Shinji has Ichigo trained to overcome his hollow. Ichigo enters his inner world and sees White. Now what does White call Ichigo here? King. He calls Ichigo King. Ichigo asks where Zangetsu is, and White says a line that we did not believe until a lot later in the story. He says, "I am Zangetsu." I won't reiterate the plot-specific details here. You guys know the story. White gives his instinct speech, which I will assume you already know, but there are some important things to note from their encounter this time. Number 1. I'm conscious of the fact that this is a manga and sometimes this happens in battle, but why does White explain to Ichigo what he is lacking? Why does White point out, yet again like he did against Zaraki, the flaws in Ichigo's mental perspectives? Why does White Ichigo constantly assume the role of teacher when interacting with Ichigo? Think back to their previous encounter. He swung Zangetsu by the cloth on the blade, and what does Ichigo do on Sokuku Hill? He imitates White and does the exact same thing. White uses the Black Getsuga against Byakuya, and what does Ichigo do? He copies White, and in this very battle, White accuses him of merely copying his move. During this battle, White clashes with Ichigo and then, while their swords are clashed, releases a Getsuga Tensho. What does Ichigo do against Grimmjow the very next time they see each other? He clashes swords with Grimmjow and then uses Getsuga Tensho. White flash taps to Ichigo and palms him in the face before hurling him away. What does Ichigo do against Aizen? Palm him in the face and hurl him away. Why is this happening? White performs a move, Ichigo copies it. White teaches Ichigo a concept, Ichigo learns it. This being, who is supposed to be a demonic beast of rage and anger who wants to overtake Ichigo, seems to be doing everything but that. I won't force my opinion on you, but you can see the hints Kubo is laying down. So after Ichigo impales White, without even feeling like he lost and with a grin on his face, he accepts Ichigo as king and threatens Ichigo that if he shows weakness, he'll overcome him. And his final warning to Ichigo is this: if you really want to control my power, until our next meeting, make sure you don't get killed. Now I have a question. More examples lay ahead, but what is the one commonality when White takes over Ichigo's body, when Ichigo's mortal life is in danger, or at least when Ichigo blacks out? If White truly wants to take over Ichigo's body, why is he telling Ichigo not to die? He's working against his very desires when he does this. Remember that. We'll come back to it. So Ichigo masters Holification and powers his way through Grimmjow in their second battle, and then fights his way through the Prevaron Espada until he encounters Ulquiorra for the second time. Here, Ulquiorra overwhelms Ichigo and stabs a hole through his heart. Many people point to this and wonder, if Ichigo's dead here, why isn't White taking over? Well, I don't think Ichigo died here. Before Ulquiorra leaves, he tells Ichigo to leave this world immediately if you can still move. If you can't, stay there and die. The words Ulquiorra chooses alludes to this fact. Ichigo isn't dead yet, but if he doesn't get help of some kind, he will die eventually. So Grimmjow saves Ichigo and they have their final battle, but the next time we see White is against Ulquiorra. Ichigo dies and White completely takes over Ichigo's body, pushing him to a victory against Ulquiorra. It's important to recognize that Aizen viewed White as a failure. The Espada were all considered as successful experiments, and Ulquiorra's second release, Segunda Etapa, stood at the apex of these new creations. White Ichigo as an entity within Ichigo surpassed his creators and became a true Vasulorde, one powerful enough to overcome the strongest Espada, who I believe is Ulquiorra. Interpret it however you will, but this is yet another example of White intervening to save Ichigo, and not only does he defeat Ulquiorra, he goes one step further. Ulquiorra is universally accepted as the Espada with the strongest regenerative abilities, but even he cannot regenerate his internal organs. Ichigo had a hole blown through his chest. Without a doubt, Ichigo's lungs and hearts were absolutely destroyed, but White showcased regenerative abilities surpassing that of even Ulquiorra to keep Ichigo alive. Again, you can interpret this however you will, but we established that if Ichigo is blacked out or in mortal danger, White is able to overtake his body. Why is White constantly doing things that act against the supposed desire of his? Why heal Ichigo when it only makes your job harder? Do you see where I'm going with this? Ichigo goes on to battle in the war in Fei Karakura town and with the help of his father, fights against Tensai Zangetsu in order to learn the final Getsuga Tensho. Okay, so the important thing to take note of here is that when White sees Ichigo, he calls him partner yet again. And 2, it is no small deal that Zangetsu and White suddenly for the first time decide to work together. Before this point, it was always one overtaking the other just so the other could do the same at a later time, but here, in this moment, the two become one. And so when Ichigo feels nothing but sadness emanating from their blade, not only is that old man Zangetsu's emotion, it's also White Ichigo's. And if it is, why is the supposed demonic hollow feeling sadness for Ichigo? Why is it that Ichigo feels that this hollow along with old man Zangetsu does not want to kill him? Why is that? Well, Ichigo goes on to defeat Aizen and we don't see White again, not until the reforging of Ichigo Zanpakuto where old man Zangetsu reveals everything. Ichigo reaches full synergy with the manifestations of his Quincy and Rancor powers, and that results in Ichigo attaining an immense amount of strength. That would be the last time we see White Ichigo because he does not appear again. So what I've done is try to refrain from imprinting my own opinions onto you. I've tried to simply present you with the details and context of the situation to allow you the opportunity to come to your own conclusion. So please let me know your opinion in the comment section down below. But my personal opinion when it comes to the character of White Ichigo is that he has been greatly misunderstood. I do not believe that White is evil. I don't believe he's a demonic pariah hell-bent on attaining power. White has always had one goal: to protect Ichigo in his own way. Think about it. Kaname describes White as a pure being and gives him that name for that very reason. When Masaki went into soul suicide, she explicitly says that the hole she's falling down is dark and lonely, but that she wasn't scared because whoever was down there needed her. I believe that Masaki saved White from his eternal loneliness, and when Kisuke bound their souls together by way of the reishi tie, White was never alone anymore. White was able to share in Masaki's joy and happiness, and then, when White was transferred to Ichigo upon birth, he would have had a front row seat to seeing Masaki give her life to protect Ichigo. I won't say that this is 100% true. This is my opinion based on the story as I saw it. But when I look at the way White protected Ichigo, when I look at the way he preserved his life by spawning his mask to protect his internal organs, when I look at how he chooses to educate Ichigo on instinct and Zanpakuto relationships, White was never evil, he was only playing the part. By assuming the role of the demon chasing after Ichigo, he was able to give Ichigo a reason to grow in strength and power in order to ultimately keep him alive. Why would he tell Ichigo to stay alive if Ichigo's death gives him what he presumably wanted, more control? Why bring Ichigo from the brink of death when a dead or close to death Ichigo is perfect for overtaking his body and claiming control? It doesn't make sense to me, not unless he doesn't actually want Ichigo's body and is merely putting up a facade. In a summarized version, this is what I think really happened. White Ichigo was nothing but a newborn creation when he was lauded as a failed experiment and discarded by his creator, Aizen Sosuke. In the dark pit he existed in, he was lonely, scared, and afraid, but he was saved from that solitude by Masaki, who formed a reishi bond with him. In order to repay that debt to Masaki, who saved him, he now took on the duties of protecting the one who Masaki gave her life to protect, Ichigo. But being the hollow that he is, his methods weren't what you'd expect. Instead of being a shoulder to cry on to Ichigo, he preferred to be an obstacle for Ichigo to overcome, one that would in turn grant Ichigo the power to protect himself. He accepted being viewed as a demon, as long as it meant that Ichigo had a reason to get stronger, and he promised himself that he would always be there if Ichigo was in danger of dying. He would step in to fight if Ichigo could no longer fight. White would become the protector of Ichigo, the one who protects. And throughout the story of Bleach, he has always made sure to keep Ichigo safe. Understanding this perspective on White has allowed me to appreciate his character so much more. He's more than the cookie-cutter dark side of the main character. The white soul that was trapped in black jet armor is no longer bound. He is free, and with his freedom, chose to be the silent, watchful protector to the son of the woman who saved him. It's beautiful. It truly is. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It's your boy Rebirth, signing off. Peace.
I told myself that I wasn't going to be working hard around New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, but I lied because y'all know me, bro. I'm always thinking ahead. I'm like, all right, what's the next video? And then over this little break that I've been having, I started rewatching Bleach. And I know as soon as I said Bleach, or also as soon as I seen the title and thumbnail, you feel me? But that's neither near or there. Y'all knew what this video was about. Today we are doing a Black Air Force analysis on my guy, the GOAT, the most demented, most demon time, most Black Air Force energy character in all of Bleach, Kenpachi Zaraki. Now, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, bro. This nigga is a demon. Any character that you see on screen and the theme instantly changes to some dark demon time shit, you know that you're in trouble, bro. If you're walking through a forest and you're like da 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 Caillou, you having fun, and all of a sudden you hear dun 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 Like, bro, on some wrestling music, when you start hearing wrestling music, when you run into a nigga, you know that you're in trouble. Bro, y'all remember watching WWE, and any time that, you feel me, The Undertaker came out, it was like a whole movie, bro. You just hear, dumb. Lights go black and all that. Yo, your motherfucking heart drop to your stomach because you know whoever is in that ring is getting folded. That is how everybody feels when they run into Kenpachi Zaraki. This man Ichigo is running around the Soul Society like a chicken with his head cut off. Man running around like Zoro, don't know where he's going. I was about to Amazon Prime delivery this nigga a GPS. You feel me? And he feels some spiritual pressure. It was at this moment that Ichigo knew that he fucked up. Like basically that's what happened, bro. When I tell you that this nigga Ichigo looked like he's seen a ghost, I'm not gonna lie. When he seen Zaraki Kenpachi, he had a flashback. This nigga is so demented that this man Ichigo had a flashback to when he beat up Ikaku. Now, if y'all remember Ikaku, bald head ass nigga, I sung Caillou earlier because I was thinking of him for real. This nigga out here looking like a swope Caillou, got the bow staff and all that. Y'all remember Ikaku, bro? When this man beat him, Ikaku said, hey, which one of y'all niggas is the strongest? This man Ichigo said, shit, I don't know, nigga, probably me. And that made Ikaku start laughing. He like, man, shit, you better hope you don't run into my man. And Ichigo like, what you mean run into your man? She like, man, my captain, you feel me? You better hope you don't run into Zaraki Kenpachi. That nigga built different. And as soon as he says this, we get back to the present, bro. And this man Zaraki is standing in front of him with this motherfucking girl on his shoulder. Low ass, short ass girl, who we know is Yachiru. That's, you know, his lieutenant of Squad 11. Now, Yachiru is on Demon Time too, and I'm gonna tell you later because some funny ass shit happened in his Neutra fight. But we're here in this fight now. So as soon as I first seen this nigga Kenpachi, I was just like, oh yeah, this nigga's different. Just look at this nigga. All right, this is where we do the part of the Black Air Force video that is called Sensei's Drip Emporium. Y'all know what that is, man. We about to look at this nigga's drip. This man Kenpachi is on Demon Time. You might as well get this nigga a bandana around his face and a do-rag, bro, because this nigga is different. Somebody put the Black Air Forces on this nigga already. Bro has a huge scar on his eye, right? And then he has a eye patch on. Any nigga that has an eye patch on is a demon. I'm not trying to hear none of that. I have never seen a nigga in an anime with an eye patch on that wasn't on some fucking Demon Time. And then it doesn't even make sense. You know this nigga's a demon because the eye that he has the scar going down isn't even the eye the eye patch is on. This nigga has an eye patch on the other eye. You know why this nigga got the eye patch on that eye? This nigga Kenpachi's such a demon. He got mad at himself one day and he punched himself in the face so hard that his eye completely fell out of the socket. This nigga is a masochist, bro. He injured himself. Nah, that's not really what happened. I honestly don't know what happened to this nigga, but the fact that he doesn't have the eye patch on his scarred eye lets you know that nigga is a demon. Kubo wanted you to see that he had the scar. Kubo was like, oh yeah, you need to know this nigga's a demon, bro, on God. So him and Ichigo get to fighting, and right away as Ichigo swings his sword at him, I realize like, oh, this nigga's completely built different. There's nothing Ichigo can do. So they get to scrapping, and at first Kenpachi was like totally just punishing this nigga. Like, it was to the point where this nigga Ichigo couldn't do anything. But all of a sudden, something really weird happened in the fight. Ichigo started like injuring him. Now, as he was injuring this man Kenpachi, I realized that, oh yeah, this nigga Kenpachi's on a different level of Demon Time. You know how some niggas have fetishes, right? Like some niggas like feet, some niggas like the BDSM shit, some niggas like getting bowls of tricks ate out of their butthole. You feel me? Like everybody likes different things. But this nigga Kenpachi's turned on by pain, bro. Like I swear to God, every time he gets cut, bro, I started seeing his dick move, bro. I'm like, bro, why can't I see your print when you start bleeding? Like, what's going on? Pause. But anyways, that's neither near or there. This man just likes to fight. Literally, anybody that likes to fight to this extent is a Black Air Force nigga. But it gets to the point, and I will explain this because you really don't find this out until the Unohana fight, but like, that happens so later on that I just want to say it now. When this nigga Zaraki fought Unohana, right? He had never found anybody that was worth fighting. This nigga had fought nothing but fodder his entire life. This nigga had basically been going around punishing Marines from One Piece. Like he's been destroying. Man, why did One Piece catch that stray like that? I don't know. But anyways, he had been punishing fodder his whole life. So when Unohana starts fighting him, it's the first time he had found anybody that was a stout opponent. Anyone that could, you know, measure up to him in any facet. And he loved it so much that he was afraid he would lose this feeling. And that drove him to subconsciously put shackles on himself. This nigga limited himself because he always wanted to be close to his opponent so he could know that feeling of having an actual challenge. So that's what happened in this Ichigo fight and in the Neutra fight. This nigga just was always limiting himself. So once he feels like Ichigo was actually standing a chance, he's like, oh, I can go all out. And this nigga takes off the eye patch. And I'm like, all right, what is taking off this eye patch about to do? And then it happens. This nigga's Ryatsu level goes to the moon. And I'm like, yo, what's going on? this is how you know this nigga is not to be fucked with. Behind this nigga Kenpachi, you just see a huge skull. Imagine you're going to fight somebody and when they get serious, you just see a figure of death behind them. It's like that one fight in One Punch Man where fucking Saitama and Genos are fighting in the little Grand Canyon type beat. And this man's like, no, you said you were gonna be serious. And then Saitama like sidestep teleports behind him and goes to punch him and you just see his huge fist and it says death. It's like one of those moments. You do not want to fight a nigga that you see a huge skull behind. Like, bro, I'm not fighting any nigga that has an ornament from a gravestone behind them. Like, what is that? So at this point, him and Ichigo draw, but not because Kenpachi is too weak, it's just he limited himself. And I say that because right after this, we get to the next fight that happens in the same arc when he fights both Captain Kamamura and Captain Tosin. Now, him and Kamamura never really got the scrap. Kamamura just uses his Bankai, and then like the Byakuya Ichigo fight starts, which kind of derivatives their attention. But he did fight this nigga Tosin. Now, this man Tosin pulled up looking like Ray Charles. Like, this nigga is blind, Stevie Wonder type beat. He can't see, but it doesn't really matter. The nigga is a captain. Now, this nigga Zaraki has his lieutenants with him, and so do them. Now, all four of the lieutenants flash step off. They get to scrapping themselves, but Zaraki's like, oh yeah, I told you I wanted a 4v1. Y'all made it a 2v1. Y'all done made the odds better for me. Like, this nigga's like, yo, I'm about to punish on it. And I'm like, if this nigga beats two captains, he's the GOAT. I don't care what nobody says, but I didn't think he would win because at the time that I was watching, he had just drew the Ichigo. I was like, yeah, ain't no way he's about to win. He probably about to get jumped. And then he starts fighting these niggas. And when I tell you that he punished, and I mean absolutely dog walked this nigga Tosin, it was so bad. Bro, it reminded me of the Boondocks episode. Y'all remember when Stank Meter was blind, right? And he accidentally got lucky with his cane, so we dodged Grandpa's like whole punch or whatever. You remember this whole time they were training Grandpa, and then they finally fought at the end? Hey, bro, this nigga beat the shit out of a nigga because he's blind? That is what just happened in this fight. Bro, this man Tosin used his Bankai, which pretty much gets rid of all the senses of his opponent, pretty much bringing them down to his level. But that didn't even help. This man Kenpachi still beat up the handicapped person. Bro, I felt so bad. I was like, someone called the cops on this nigga. He was beating the shit out of someone that can't see. Yo, this man Tosin's like, oh, you can't see me here. Your senses are gone. And then this man Kenpachi says, oh, I can't see? So how am I touching you? And grabs this nigga arm and then pulls him in, stabs this nigga dead in his stomach. I'm like, oh my God, this nigga Kenpachi is the GOAT. Bro, how do you get into someone's Bankai? This man Tosin basically put a domain expansion over this nigga and he can't see anything and he still managed to cut the nigga. I'm like, bro, there's nothing that this man can't cut. Like, what the fuck? Anyways, we're gonna fast forward to the Neutra fight at this point, right? So we get to the Waco Mundo shit. This man Ichigo is getting punished by this big ass, burly ass, like, I don't even know what it is, in a spotter. I don't know what the thing is that was beating him up. I really can't remember. But anyways, he's getting punished, bro. And I'm like, oh my God. Odahime in the back, like, oh my God, Kurosaki-kun. I hate Odahime, bro. Like, Odahime and Sakura are like in a race neck and neck against who's the worst. It's like seeing two trash cans race for first, like, oh my God. But anyways, Odahime and Kurosaki-kun in the background. This man is getting punished. I mean, this big ass thing, beam, 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 rocking him. This man knew what you're just watching this shit. So they go to finish Ichigo off, and this nigga Kenpachi shows up and blocks his big ass thing with his sword and shit. First off, this man got this chipped ass sword. I'm tired of this nigga Kenpachi sword. By the way, I forgot to mention this, but now since I'm talking about a sword, I will. This nigga has done all of these fights so far with no Shikai or Bankai. Now, Shikai is like the, first form of your Zanpakuto, and the Bankai is like the truest form or whatever, something like that. I know y'all dweeb ass niggas will tell me, but anyways, he has neither one of those, like neither one of those forms. This nigga has just been fighting with a regular ass form. He's so strong that the other captains just believe that he has a continuous Shikai form. No, why would his Shikai be some stupid chipped ass sword? This nigga got fucking shark teeth as a sword, jagged nasty ass sword. Like, what, bro? There's no way y'all thought this was his Shikai. But anyway, this nigga's fighting this nigga Neutra with this chipped ass sword, right? He gets to scrapping this nigga and once again limits himself, bro. And I'm just like, Kenpachi, you gotta stop. Like, what are you doing? But anyways, Neutra is getting bodied because it's Kenpachi. So he ends up using this Resurrection, which is super broken, by the way, because these niggas can basically just revive themselves. Like, bro, these niggas got quick revive, bro. Like, you put them down, like, oh my God, that shit is broken, bro. It's like, nah, not even a quick revive. It's like self-revive, bro. You know, it's a self-revive perk that's in like the newer zombies. You go down and get you up. That's what these niggas got. Bro, this nigga healed completely up. Scar going all that. And they got some sort of like regeneration. I'm like, okay, hold on. This nigga might get with Kenpachi. Nope, I was wrong. This whole time, Kenpachi was limiting himself, not only subconsciously, but also literally with his skills. He doesn't even use kendo. He just fights recklessly, brute force wise with his fucking pew, pew, pew. stupid chipped ass sword. So then he gets to a point where he's mad at Norcia. This nigga Norcia over here looking like a slender Goro, got 4 arms and shit. Dumbass. I don't even know, like it's like a crescent moon type sword. I don't know. But anyways, Kenpachi gets to the point where he's like, I'm tired of this. I didn't want to use this, but these dumbass captains made me learn it. He goes to grab his sword with 2 hands, uses 1 kendo slash, and cuts this nigga clean down the middle. This nigga Norcia is instantly like, arms fucked up, going and shit. This nigga's a paraplegic at this point. He's like, ugh. And then this nigga Kenpachi's like, oh, you're dead. I don't even have any, desire to fight you anymore. I'm just gonna leave. So he goes to leave. This nigga is like, no, finish me off. And I'm like, pause. What you mean finish him off? What do you mean by that? So anyways, this nigga Kenpachi's like, all right, bet. Goes back, slashes the nigga again, and bodies him. You didn't even have to die, dumbass nigga. Why did you let him kill you? This nigga was trying to spare your ass, but finishes him, yo. What's funny in this shit though, on some Black Air Force Demon Time shit from Yachiro is, and also Kenpachi, was when this nigga Ichigo sees him, he's like, yo, is that Zaraki Kenpachi? And this nigga turns around and says, you better hope it is, and kicks this nigga all the way out the frame. Boots this nigga. Boom. Bro, he kicked this nigga so hard, bro, they censored it out of the dub. That shit's just in the sub, bro. This nigga is different. Then this nigga was about to try to get in the fight. Yachiro hit this nigga with the bicycle kick. This nigga Yachiro over here looking like Liu Kang from Mortal Kombat. Yo, it's like, stay out of the fight. Kenny's got that face on him. He's happy. That's my Yachiro voice, by the way. But anyways, punishes this nigga Ichigo. Bro, these niggas are demons, bro. I'm just like, come on. What are we talking about? So next up in the fights, bro, we got my nigga Kenpachi versus Unohana, bro. This is the best Kenpachi fight in my opinion. Also one of the best fights in the entire series, by the way. So I told y'all a little bit of this earlier. Unohana was the first Kenpachi. So Unohana goes and she basically has to do these like tough jobs for the Soul Society, right? They basically make the Kenpachis do the criminal shit. If they weren't captains, they'd be criminals. That's basically what Kenpachi and Unohana tell us here. So they send her on this like mission or whatever in this impoverished ass area. Literally the racist cleanup crew, basically. Like, it's kind of crazy. Like, basically Unohana's a task force, but I don't know. But anyways, she shows up and one of the lieutenants is like, oh man, I see this, heap of bodies. And Unohana's like, nigga, that's not my bodies, nigga. Like, how long has these bodies been here? And he's like, I don't know, nigga. I thought you did it. And then Unohana's like, all right, yo, get out the way, you feel me? And she finds this nigga Kenpachi, but he's a kid. So she gets a scrap in this nigga. And let me tell you how strong this nigga is. This little porcupine head ass nigga was so strong when he was a kid that he was stronger than not only a captain, but a Kenpachi. He was stronger than Unohana. And I already explained to you that he limited himself in this fight, but he was stronger than her in this fight. Shit is crazy. So Unohana's idea in this fight to try to get these shackles off of this nigga, which was a direct command by Kiraku, was to basically keep killing this nigga and reviving him. There's a point in the fight where she's killing this nigga and she says, I'll do this hundreds, no, thousands. She killed this nigga thousands of times in this fight. You know you're a Black Air Force nigga when you die 1,000 times and you still get up? What kind of nigga are you, bro? What kind of batteries do you have? Them shit's recharging themselves. Bro, this chick Unohana was killing this nigga and bringing him back to life thousands of times until we got to a point where this nigga was that nigga. He was like, oh, before I was just reacting to her sword. Now I'm acting off of pure reflex. This nigga is just dodging. Weave, cut, weave. And it gets to a point where Unohana is happy to die to this nigga. You know that y'all are some demons when you're happy to die to another demon. Kenpachis are demons, bro. Their whole thing is let's just fight to the death. So they get to fighting, bro, and this nigga Kenpachi finally finishes her off, stabs this bitch straight through her abdomen, her sternum, all of that. She's dying blissful, like, oh, I'm so happy that I'm dying to this nigga. You're the only man to bring me true joy. And I'm like, damn, Kenpachi, you should have at least clapped the cheeks first before you killed her. I mean, goddamn, like, anyways, I'm down bad. But this nigga Kenpachi is the GOAT. So we finally learned his Shikai and shit after this, you feel me? Because he's kind of reached a new height, a new level. And then we get to the last arc, bro. This nigga fights Grimmy. Now, let me tell y'all about this Grimmy fight. Bro, this nigga Grimmy literally is like a reality shifter, bro. Anything that he wants, he just makes it happen with his mind type shit. So we gets to fighting this motherfucking Kenpachi. Kenpachi shows up with a Shikai. Nigga got a big ass butcher knife looking like he working a deli. Like nigga, let me get a pound of turkey and a salami. Like, big dumbass shit, bro. I'm not gonna lie, bro. Shit you will find in a motherfucking kitchen. Like, I don't know. But anyways, he gets to slashing this big ass building. Grimmy's like, oh my God, nigga, you destroying this big ass building with one slash. And then he starts imagining this shit. And he puts this nigga Kenpachi in the vacuum of space. And I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, this nigga's in space right now. His fucking eye socket starts to fall out. His body starts fucking moving weird. And this Grammy is like, yeah, when you're in space, your lungs will implode if you breathe and your body will start to deform. You're gonna die a slow, painful death. And he's like, if you can cut anything, I'll put you somewhere where you can't cut. And this nigga Kenpachi, like the Black Air Force fucking demon he is, he's like, I guess you didn't harden your body hard enough, and cuts through space. I've never seen a nigga cut through something like that. Bro, what kind of fucking, oh my God. He cuts this nigga in half. I'm like, oh, Grimmy's dead already? Wrong. This nigga Grimmy reforms his body and then blows this nigga Kenpachi up with like a nuke. And I'm like, okay, Kenpachi gotta be done at this point, right? There's no way. That shit only damaged his fucking clothes. This nigga come out of the smoke, body still intact, on demon time. It's so bad that this nigga Grammy was like, bro, I wanna win. I wanna win. This is the first time I've ever wanted to win. And the only way that this nigga thought he could win, because Kenpachi is such a demon, is him becoming as strong as Kenpachi. He imagined Kenpachi as this super fucking unreachable monster, and he became that in his mind. And I know you're thinking like, oh shit, the fight got interesting here. No, this nigga Grimmy killed himself. Yo, Kenpachi is so strong. When he imagined to be as strong as him, his body couldn't take it. This nigga Grimmy started falling apart. This nigga Kenpachi is standing over him like, man, you're dumbass. You imagined me to be some unimaginable monster, and that unimaginable monster is the reason you're dead. Fucking dumbass. Bro, I'm like, oh my God. This nigga Grimmy body was falling apart. It looked nasty as shit. His arm hanging off the bone like a tender steak. Like, bro, like, what's going on with this nigga? His whole body was fucked up. Nigga was built like the muscle form of Jiren from Dragon Ball Super. Like, bro, it was crazy. Then we get to this Valkyrie fight at the end, bro. I ain't gonna lie. This is where this nigga Zaraki Kenpachi learns Bankai, bro. And I'm not gonna lie, bro. There's this theory that Yachiro's his Bankai, and I'm like, that's fucking demented. But hey, that's neither near or there. This nigga Bankai deserves Black Tims. We're putting Black Tims officially on Zaraki Kenpachi's Bankai. This nigga looks like a literal demon. Like, y'all remember that nigga Hellboy? He looks like a Hellboy ass nigga. His skin is red. Bro, this nigga's red, got the dagger fucking pointed tooth, and then his sword is disgusting. It's like mangled, nasty ass sword. This nigga Valkyrie, big stupid ass nigga, looking like a huge ass wrestler, got wrestler armor on, talking about, yo, the Johoffer, Hogoffer, whatever the fuck stupid ass pronunciation. He's like, oh, you're not even worth hitting. Your mangled ass sword, your Bankai sucks, all of this shit. He go to punch this nigga Zaraki. Cut this nigga arm clean off. This nigga talking shit like, oh, you can't even do nothing. Cutting my arm's not gonna do anything. I'm like, nigga, he cut your arm off. Like, what do you mean it's not gonna do anything? So then he goes to attack this nigga directly. He got this big ass shield that no one has been able to get through. This nigga Zaraki cuts through his head and also shatters the shield completely. This nigga's like, oh, what the fuck, nigga, you got through my shield? And I'm like, bro, somebody get this nigga a mini. His shield is gone. That was a Fortnite joke. But anyways, nah, for real, on some real shit though, he bodies this nigga, this big giant ass nigga. Bro, Zaraki Kenpachi is a pure demon, bro. This nigga is a Black Air Force with a fucking sword. There is nothing that this nigga has done in the story that I'm like, that's soft. This nigga is not soft. He is hard. This nigga is Viagra hard. Pause. This nigga is fucking brick hard. Pause. This nigga is concrete hard. Pause. Everything about him is fucking Black Air Force, bro. This nigga needs them. I ain't gonna lie, bro. If Kenpachi was ever in a video game, they just need to have a style where this nigga has a do-rag and Black Air Forces on. Nah, fuck that. A ski mask and a Black Air Forces on and a big ass 40, nigga. This nigga is the fucking GOAT. If Kenpachi's Zanpakuto was a big ass gun, I will believe it. Because this nigga is smoking everything he comes in contact with. This nigga might as well be in a barbecue contest the way that this nigga is smoking shit. I am not playing with this nigga, bro. That was bars, by the way. But anyways, though, this nigga Kenpachi's the fucking GOAT. You know what the fuck going on? Stop playing with Kenpachi. Big Kenpachi, nigga. He was the first nigga to kill a character without a Zanpakuto, nigga.
By the time we reach the final third of the 1,000-Year Blood War arc, the main villain, Quincy King Yhwach, has become a nigh unstoppable being, and this is due to his ability, the Almighty. The Almighty is Yuhavar's shrift, and it basically gives him the power to see all. He becomes an omniscient being worthy of his God King status. The Almighty allows him to see every possible future timeline, but not only that, it allows him to directly interfere with these futures and change them to his liking. This means that if something was going to happen in the future that was disadvantageous to Yuhavar, he could simply see that timeline and change it, and it would actually affect the present, which basically does make him an unstoppable force. In fact, during the final battle with Ichigo, we see the Almighty at its most powerful. Yuhavar reveals that he can even rewrite a future in which he has been killed. So yeah, for the final villain of Bleach, Kubo really pulled out all of the stops in making this guy completely undefeatable. However, there are two characters in the series whose special abilities allowed them to somewhat circumvent this godlike power. And it's with these two characters' help, in different ways, that Ichigo is eventually able to gain some kind of an upper hand on Yuhavar and finally win the day. What I like most about this scenario is that the two characters in question are actually two of Ichigo's biggest foes from separate arcs in the story, Sosuke Aizen and Shukuro Tsukishima. In this video, I want to take a look at how these characters and their individual powers helped Ichigo overcome the Almighty in different ways, and kind of take a deeper look at how some of these powers actually worked to stop the Almighty, because it was a little muddy, it was a little confusing, some of it wasn't particularly well explained, especially where Tsukishima's Book of the End is concerned. That's a semi-confusing ability anyway, so in this video, I just wanted to take a deep look at how these two characters were able to defy the Almighty and eventually help Ichigo defeat his foe. Before we get started, if you enjoy Bleach discussions in your subscription box every week, then hit the subscribe button now, guys. I would really appreciate the support. You are absolutely in the right place for a Bleach community. Looking forward to the anime and everything else coming for this franchise. Help us push towards 10,000 subs. I would super appreciate it. Give the video a thumbs up. It really helps with the exposure, and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with all my videos. If you're new here as well, we have a great Discord community. You can join the Discord in the link in the description, and also follow me on Twitter for video updates before they come out. So, to begin the video, I think we should look at Tsukishima's Book of the End and how his contribution helped Ichigo defeat Yuhavar, because that's the first one we see out of the two of them. And let's go for some context first. So Ichigo was battling Yuhavar with Orihime at the top of Varveld, and things were going pretty well for him, all things considered, until Yuhavar decided to activate the Almighty. Once he did, Yuhavar was able to see every single future, and most infamously snapped Ichigo's Bankai in half like a twig. The moment Ichigo activated Tensa Zangetsu, Yuhavar broke it in half, because that's the power of the Almighty. He had already seen in the future that Ichigo was going to use his brand new Bankai, which was incredibly powerful, and Yuhavar was like, you know what, I can't be having that, I'm just going to break it in half now. That's the kind of power we're dealing with here. So it would take an almost equally broken ability to help rectify that. Enter Tsukishima Shukuro, the Fullbringer responsible for giving Ichigo so much trouble in the Lost Agent arc. Tsukishima is one of my absolute favourite characters, and I loved seeing him here, even if it took absolutely ages for him to actually show up, and then he was only around for half a chapter, so I'm not going to lie, that was a little bit annoying. But it was great to see him do something anyway, and he has an actual substantial impact on the outcome of the final battle. Because Yuha has broken Ichigo's Tensa Zangetsu in all possible future timelines, even Orihime's power cannot reject the damage, and so Tensa Zangetsu remains broken and there is nothing Ichigo can do. When Tsukishima arrives, however, he stabs Ichigo in the back with Book of the End, and we all know how this power works. It allows Tsukishima to insert himself into the victim's past, essentially creating an alternate timeline. Now, these timelines only exist for as long as Tsukishima is alive. I kind of wonder how that works now, since he's now a soul, although we know souls can die, so I guess it's essentially the same. Either way, as he explains to Ichigo in the Lost Agent arc, Tsukishima notes that time is always flowing forward, and therefore multiple infinite futures can be created from a single point in the present. And Tsukishima's power doesn't affect the future, it affects the past. So I'm going to try and describe this as much as I possibly can. This is just based on my own thoughts of how this power has worked to circumvent the Almighty. Let me know in the comments below, guys, if you think I'm off base here, but this is the best explanation I can come up with. Imagine the past is like a cement block. It cannot move and it cannot change because it has already occurred. That cannot be affected. But in front of the past are infinite possibilities because that hasn't happened yet. As Yuhavar notes to Ichigo, these possibilities appear before him like millions upon millions of grains of sand, and he can pluck one out of thin air and transform it at will. What we have here then is Ichigo's current past, and all of those future timelines have been affected by Yuhavar, and in every single one of them, he has irreparably destroyed Tensa Zangetsu. When Tsukishima arrives, however, he cuts Ichigo and inserts himself into Ichigo's past, but he's not really doing anything. That's not the important thing this time. This time, all that's happening is he is creating an alternate past where Ichigo's Tensa Zangetsu was not irreparably damaged across every timeline. Like I said, Tsukishima's power doesn't affect the future, it just affects the past. So all we've done here is created a second concrete block with a whole bunch of new infinite timelines that Yuhavar has had no influence over. Because although Yuhavar can affect every future timeline in a specific instance, a brand new past leads to brand new possibilities. This is what I mean by it being a little bit confusing, but that's essentially the gist of it. Tsukishima creates a split past for Ichigo, a brand new one where Tensa Zangetsu has never been permanently destroyed, allowing Orihime to fix it for him. This is also evident when Ichigo finally arrives to face Yuhavar as well. Yuhavar instantly tries to destroy his sword, but because those future timelines where Yuhavar had already broken the sword are no longer in effect, the sword doesn't shatter. Now, Yuhavar can see every future timeline, but the way I always assumed the Almighty worked was that he has to actually try and see them, if that makes sense. He has to be consciously looking into the future to be able to see these things. That's why when Ichigo arrived, Yuha didn't realise that his past had been changed because he wasn't focused on Ichigo. He was focused on fighting Aizen in Soul Society. So when he's like, oh, Ichigo's here, he's operating on the same timeline as he was before, I'll just destroy that sword again. Oh, it's not breaking. That's because someone has already affected it. That is the power that Book of the End has over the Almighty. The Almighty affects everything forward, but Book of the End can change things behind to create new forward, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Moving on to Aizen Sosuke's contribution, and this is a lot more simple in my opinion. This is quite a bit easier to explain how Kyoka Suigetsu is able to affect Yuhavar. So we know that in order for Kyoka Suigetsu to be effective on someone, they have to have first fallen under its spell, and I think we can pretty much all agree that Aizen does that to Yuhavar way back in the first invasion when he goes to visit him, and it messes with Yuhavar's head enough that it completely throws off his sense of time. Clearly, Aizen was playing the long game with this one because Kyoka Suigetsu comes back into play here in the final battle. And like I said, this one is a lot easier to work out. Basically, imagine Yuhavar's ability is a set of infinite pools. Infinite pools of water, and he can look into every single one of them and see something in each of them. However, that power is not particularly useful if somebody else is controlling what you see in those pools. We know that Aizen's Kyoka Suigetsu affects all 5 senses, and sight is one of them, and that's the primary thing that Yuhavar is using here. It doesn't matter if Yuhavar can see every timeline, Aizen is controlling what he sees. Therefore, as soon as Yuhavar arrives in the final battle, he is already under Kyoka Suigetsu's spell, and Aizen is playing with him until Ichigo stabs him in the back. I want to do another video in the future looking at the final battle in detail, because it is actually kind of confusing. There's a lot going on there. Is Renji even there? You know, we know that Renji kind of goes with Ichigo, but as far as I'm concerned, he doesn't actually partake in that